I am 22 years old and I live alone in an old house in a quiet neighborhood in Columbus, Ohio. I grew up here. I learned how to ride a bike here. And it was here, too, that my mother died. The house is mine. Legally, officially. Sometimes I say it out loud just to make sure it's real. Not because I'm materialistic, but because this house is the only thing that didn't abandon me when everything fell apart. My mother passed away last year, at 47, from a stroke. It was too fast for the brain to keep up. One day she was complaining about weak coffee. The next I was signing papers with shaking hands and listening to a doctor use complicated words. My father is still alive. That's important to say, because sometimes it doesn't feel like it. My parents separated when I was 7, shared custody on paper, equal division on the calendar, but not in affection. Half the month with him, half with her. With him, I learned how to get by on my own. With her, I learned how to be a child. It wasn't that he was cruel, he was just always busy. Work, calls, travel, meetings that never ended. I would sit at the kitchen table doing homework while he typed on the computer, telling me to wait just 5 more minutes. Those 5 minutes turned into hours. When I turned 18 and started college, he moved to Dallas, Texas for work. Said it was temporary, until it wasn't. From then on, our relationship turned into specific dates and generic messages. Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays with short phone calls. He would ask if everything was okay. I would say yes, even when it wasn't. It was easier that way. My mother was my anchor. She planned everything, even the things no one likes to plan. Shortly after I turned 18, she updated her will. She laughed and said she didn't want to leave me lost if something happened. I told her to stop talking nonsense. She ignored me. When she died, I found out the house had been left entirely to me. My father didn't take it well. He didn't fight. He just became different. More closed off. More distant than he already was. The house had been bought by both of them when they were still married. In the divorce, she kept the house, and he didn't pay child support. A clean agreement, according to the lawyers. Fair, because she gave up her own career to raise me while he climbed the corporate ladder. Even so, you could tell he never fully swallowed that. After the funeral, he went back to Texas with his girlfriend. I stayed. Newly graduated. A job that didn't require moving. A house that was too big. There were nights when I slept in my mother's bedroom, just to feel like she was still there. I told myself I was fine, that I was strong, and deep down, as much as I didn't want to admit it, I was still expecting something from my father. Not money, not practical help, just real presence, something that never fully came. My father called me on a Tuesday night around 9 p.m. His voice sounded way too cheerful for someone who rarely called. He said he was getting married. His new wife was named Margaret Collins, a common name, an easy smile, a voice that was always a little too sweet. She had 2 teenage daughters, Hannah Collins and Emily Collins, homeschooled, quiet, observant. My father explained that they planned to spend a few weeks in Columbus before the ceremony because the wedding would be there. He said it didn't make sense to spend money on a hotel when there was a big house with empty rooms. My house. He didn't say it like that, but that's what it was. I hesitated. Not because of them, because of him. Even so, I agreed. Part of me was tired of eating dinner alone while staring at my phone. And there was also the practical promise. He would help with the bills while they were there. Not that I desperately needed it, but splitting costs always sounds better when you live alone. They arrived one afternoon in a rental car too big for the garage. I stood on the porch watching as they unloaded suitcases, boxes, bags. Margaret was the first to hug me, a quick, firm, rehearsed hug. She said she was happy to finally get to know me better. The girls stayed behind her, a little awkward, and went inside. During the first few days, we had dinner together. Margaret praised the house all the time, said it had a lot of light, a lot of history. My father smiled when she said that. The girls barely talked. They spent most of their time in the room I had prepared, with laptops and headphones. Sometimes they came into the kitchen to get water or something to eat. Always polite, always distant. I tried to make conversation. Asked what they liked, what they studied. They answered just enough not to seem rude. Margaret, on the other hand, talked a lot. She commented on how hard it had been to raise children alone before meeting my father, how he was a reliable man, stable, a provider. There were good moments with them in my house. I won't pretend there weren't. One Sunday when we made pancakes together. One night when we watched an old movie and laughed at the same scenes. But along with that came a discomfort that was hard to explain. Margaret asked too many questions about the house, when it had been renovated, how much the property taxes were, whether maintenance was expensive. My father listened in silence. Sometimes he added to the answer. Sometimes he changed the subject. I caught myself locking my bedroom door at night, something I had never done when I lived alone, not out of fear, more out of instinct, as if some part of me was on alert, even without knowing exactly why. I told myself I was overreacting, that it wasn't fair to distrust people who were being kind to me. Still, every time I went upstairs and saw their suitcases spread out, I had the uncomfortable feeling that this was stopping being temporary far too quickly. It was on a night that was too calm that my father decided to talk. It was just the two of us in the kitchen. Margaret had taken the girls for a walk around the block, something she had started doing often, as if she wanted to give us father-daughter moments. He said he was happy there, that it had been a long time since he felt so at home. He looked around as if he were evaluating every wall, every piece of furniture. He said he worried about me living alone in a big house with so much empty space. He used the word safety. He used the word family. Then came the sentence. He asked if I had ever thought about the possibility of everyone staying there for good. Not for now, not as a trial, for good. My body froze. I didn't answer right away. He kept talking, said he didn't like the idea of me living alone, that Margaret had grown very attached to me, that the girls could learn a lot from me, that they would help with everything, bills, maintenance, company. He said he wanted to fully integrate me into the new family. I wanted to say yes. That's the ugly part to admit. I wanted to say yes because I was tired of coming home and having no one ask how my day was. I wanted to say yes because, for a few seconds, it sounded like I was finally being chosen. But then I remembered the funeral, the way he reacted when he found out the house wasn't his, the heavy silence afterward. I remembered Margaret asking about taxes and renovations. I remembered myself locking my bedroom door without knowing why. I took a deep breath and said I needed time. I didn't say no. I didn't say yes either. I said it was too much to decide all at once. I said I had just lost my mother. I said that house was my place of stability now, that I didn't want to make a big decision driven by neediness. As I spoke, I noticed small changes. His smile became more rigid. His gaze shifted too quickly. He said he understood, that there was no rush, that we could talk about it after the wedding. He spoke in a calm tone, almost too controlled. I agreed. That night, when Margaret came back, I noticed she was watching me more closely. I went to my room and closed the door. Update 1. The following days followed a strange rhythm, as if everyone was waiting for something to happen but pretending everything was normal. Margaret started cooking more, as if she wanted to mark territory without saying it out loud. My father started referring to the house in the plural. Our house. Here at home, I started spending more time out, coming home later from work. The wedding was approaching, and with it the feeling that that conversation wasn't over. It had only been postponed. The wedding took place on a bright Saturday. The ceremony was beautiful. Rehearsed smiles, speeches, promises spoken in voices that were a little too firm. I clapped, hugged them both, took pictures. I did everything expected of someone who's part of the scene, even without knowing exactly what my role in it was. After the reception, we all went back home. They said they would stay just a few more days before returning to Texas. I accepted that as fact. I was already mentally preparing myself to hear only the sound of my own footsteps in the hallway again. 2 days later, I woke up early for work. It was still dark, around 6 in the morning. I found the silence strange. Not the normal silence of the house, but an empty silence. I didn't hear the shower. I didn't hear the coffee maker. I didn't hear footsteps. I got out of bed and went to the kitchen. Nothing. Living room? Empty. The rooms where the girls had been sleeping? Empty. Beds unmade, as if they had left in a hurry. Some suitcases were still there, but others were gone. The car wasn't in the garage. I stood in the middle of the hallway trying to understand if I had forgotten some conversation. No one had mentioned a trip. No one had said goodbye. No one had asked me anything. I grabbed my phone and called my father. It rang until voicemail. I called again. Nothing. I sent a message. Waited. Time passed, and that feeling of abandonment started to grow. Around noon, I finally got a response. It wasn't from him. It was from Margaret. She said they had decided to leave for their honeymoon and would be gone for about a week. She added a, "We forgot to tell you" at the end, as if that fixed everything. I stared at the phone screen and felt a bitter taste of having been left behind without even being considered worthy of information. I replied asking why no one thought it was important to let me know. I didn't use harsh words. I said it wasn't about being included in the trip, but about basic respect. About not disappearing from someone's house as if it didn't exist. The reply came too fast. The tone completely changed. She said I was overreacting, that they were busy, that my father didn't have time to deal with drama. She used the word hysterical. She said I was no longer a child and needed to understand that my father now had a new family. She told me to enjoy the time alone to get the house in order, because when they came back, it would be better if everything was clean. I read that message more than once, as if I were trying to find another possible interpretation. I didn't find one. I immediately called, asking to speak to my father. My cousin, my father's favorite nephew, answered. I asked what he was doing there. He said my father had invited him and paid for the whole trip. My father knew I was off work during those days, and even so, he didn't invite me. He chose to take my cousin instead. He said my father didn't want to talk to me. My father's wife took the phone out of my cousin's hands and yelling said that I should stop bothering them, that I was ruining an important moment out of selfishness. That initial sweetness had an expiration date, and it ended the moment I said something she didn't like hearing. She ended the call without saying goodbye, without leaving room for a response. I sat in the kitchen, trying to understand how that house, which was my only solid ground, had been treated like a cheap hotel, and how I, once again, had been treated like someone who only exists when it's convenient. I walked through the house as if seeing everything for the first time. Their things were everywhere. Shoes by the door, toiletries in the bathroom that had been only mine, coats hanging on chairs that had never been used for that before. The house no longer felt like mine. It felt occupied. I opened the room where the girls had been staying. Clothes tossed on the bed, light on, notebooks open, chargers plugged into the wall. Everything left behind with the confidence of someone who knows they can come back whenever they want. That irritated me immediately. I went to the guest room where my father and Margaret slept. Her suitcase was still open, as if the week away were just a pause. I grabbed my phone again, thought about calling my father, thought about arguing, thought about trying to be understanding one more time. I gave up. I had been trying to be understanding my whole life. I started packing. I didn't do it carefully. I didn't fold clothes. I didn't organize by person. I grabbed cardboard boxes from the basement and started throwing everything inside. T-shirts, pants, shoes, hair products, books. I put fragile things together without caring. It wasn't revenge. It was urgency. It was the need to get that out of my space as fast as possible. I carried the boxes outside one by one. I put everything in the front yard, near the fence. I didn't cover them. I didn't protect them from the rain. I didn't care. After that, I called a locksmith. While I waited, I walked through the house, organizing everything. When the locksmith arrived, I explained that I needed to change all the locks. He didn't ask questions. He worked in silence. When he left, I tested every door. They all locked. They all opened only with the new key. The next day, my father called. When I saw the missed calls, I knew exactly what it would be about. When I finally answered, he didn't start by asking if I was okay. He started yelling. He said I had crossed the line, that I was being childish, that this was a stupid misunderstanding. He spoke as if he had gone out to buy bread, not as someone who abandoned his daughter's house without notice. He said Margaret was very upset. He said I had humiliated all of them. I listened until the end. When he paused to breathe, I said, with a calmness that surprised even me, that it was my house, that no one had the right to leave without telling me, treat me like staff, and expect everything to be the same when they returned. I said they had to pick up the boxes and leave. He laughed, a short, disbelieving laugh. He said I was exaggerating, said I should think better, said he was disappointed in me. I said that if they were on my property when I got home, I would call the police. There was silence on the other end. Then insults came, words thrown as if they could make me back down. He hung up without saying goodbye. When I got home that night, the boxes were no longer in the yard. They had come while I was out. They had taken everything. The house was mine again. I stood in the living room, waiting to feel immediate relief. It came, but along with it came something else. A deep sadness. Not because of losing them, because of the confirmation. The certainty that, once again, when I set a boundary, I became the villain of the story, and I knew it wasn't over yet. That same night, just before midnight, my phone rang. I was already in bed. My father's name appeared on the screen. I stared at it until it almost went to voicemail. I answered at the last second. He didn't speak first. He passed the phone. Margaret's voice came through, low, controlled, completely different from the coldness of the other day. She said she wanted to apologize, that she had overreacted, that she was under a lot of stress, that her comment had come out wrong, that it wasn't what she really felt. As she spoke, I paid attention to the tone, the pauses, the rhythm. It didn't sound spontaneous, it sounded rehearsed, like someone who knows exactly what to say to get what they want. She said she wanted peace, that it didn't make sense to create a rift over something so small. She used that word, small. She said she hoped we could start over the right way. I almost laughed, Before I could respond, my father took the phone back. His voice was different now, softer. He said he was hurt, that he never expected this from me, that I had been raised better than that. He said the house reminded him of my mother, that living there would help him feel closer to her, that I was being selfish by denying him that. That part hit me. Not because it was true, but because it was calculated. He knew exactly where to touch. He said he was willing to pay bills, that he didn't want anything from me, that he just wanted to come back home. He said Margaret had had a bad day, that the girls were confused, that I was punishing everyone over a stupid misunderstanding. I said I didn't believe her apologies, that I didn't need rehearsed speeches, that if she were truly sorry, she would have apologized the same day, not after realizing she wouldn't have access to the house. I said I wasn't stupid. My father sighed loudly, said I was being cruel, said my mother would be disappointed in me. That sentence hurt more than I'd like to admit. For a second, I almost gave in, almost apologized for things I hadn't done, but I remembered how they made me feel disposable when they left without telling me. I said no. I said the decision was final, that they would not live with me again, that I needed peace, that the conversation was over. That's when he started crying, not quiet crying, loud, desperate crying. He called me an ungrateful daughter, said I was choosing loneliness out of pride. He even called me heartless. I hung up on him. I sat on the bed, feeling a strange mix of guilt and relief. Update 2. In the following days, messages started arriving at random hours. Early morning, late at night, always with the same tone, urgency disguised as affection. My father said he needed to talk to me, that it was important, that he was going through a difficult time. I didn't reply. Until one night, he finally said the reason. Not directly, never directly. He said things were tight, that things hadn't gone as planned, that going back to Texas wasn't a viable option at the moment, that Margaret had quit her job to take care of the house, that they only needed help for a while. That's when everything clicked. The desperation disguised as affection. It wasn't about family. It never was. My father called again. I didn't answer. Then he started sending longer messages. The truth came out little by little, as always. First, he admitted he hadn't been working for months, said he had been let go temporarily, as if that changed anything. Then he confessed he had been living off savings that were being drained by rent. The wedding had been expensive, the honeymoon even more so. He wrote that as if it were inevitable, not a conscious choice. Margaret, according to him, had quit her job shortly after they got engaged because he assured her he could support everyone. The girls needed stability, a fixed home, a place to start over. That place, in his mind, had always been my house. Everything made sense all at once. The rush to move in, the speech about my safety, the insistence on staying for good. It wasn't an improvised plan. It was an expectation. He never asked me if I wanted to share my life with them. He assumed that, in the end, I would give in, as I always had, like the understanding daughter who tolerates discomfort to keep the peace. This time, no. When I replied, it was by text. Not because I wanted to be cold, but because I needed to be clear. I wrote that I wasn't responsible for his financial choices, that I wasn't obligated to fix mistakes that weren't mine, that the house wasn't a temporary solution for poorly planned decisions. He replied quickly, irritated, said I was judging him and that I didn't understand the weight of supporting a family, that any decent daughter would help her father in a situation like that. I didn't feel like explaining myself. I wrote that he was an adult man, that he had made choices knowing the consequences, that I had spent years learning how to get by on my own while he prioritized work and relationships, that now I wasn't going to put my stability at risk to save the provider image he wanted to maintain. He tried another approach, said he only needed a few days, that it was just until he found a job, but I knew how that would end. A few days would turn into months, and any boundary I tried to set later would be treated as betrayal. I said no again. That's when his tone changed for good. He said I would have to deal with the consequences of being like this, that I was breaking something that couldn't be fixed later, that one day I would regret it. I read the message calmly. I didn't reply. I blocked the number. A few weeks later, I found out through others that they had left the city, not because they decided to respect my decision, but because they found another way out. His new wife had contacted her ex-partner, the girl's father, a man who, as far as I knew, had always paid child support, always been financially present, even if emotionally absent. Ironically, similar to my father, he paid for the move, paid for the tickets, offered them a place to stay for a while. What surprised me was the last call I received from my father months later, from a different number. I answered out of curiosity. His voice was different, without that tone of authority. He told me the marriage was over, that she decided to return to her previous relationship, that he regretted everything, that everything had gone wrong, that he wanted to fix at least one thing in his life, our relationship. I listened in silence. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel like crying either. I felt a kind of emotional distance, as if that conversation were happening with someone I had known in another life. He asked for another chance, said he understood now, that he had learned, that he just wanted to rebuild slowly. I said I hoped he would be okay, that I didn't hold hatred. I said I needed peace, that I had spent too much time trying to be understanding with people who only understood me when they needed something. He stayed silent, then hung up. Since then, we haven't spoken again. The house is still here. I'm moving on with my life. I have friends. I have work. I have this space that is mine, by right and by history. Today, when I miss my mother, I try to remember what she really left me. It wasn't just the house. It was the possibility of not depending on people who never truly chose me. I still feel lonely sometimes, but I've learned that being alone is much better than being used.